What's going on, guys? Corey from Yoda Expedition here. In our last video, we got the Crestone roof rack installed from Sherpa on our 4Runner, and now we are ready to start putting some accessories on that. So we're going to start with the rear window panels, so let's get into it. So before we go ahead and get the window panel onto the roof rack, we're going to go ahead and install both the suction cups here along with the bracket, and then when we get to all of the hardware, we'll go over that as well. So this one here is pretty simple. Just pull this off, and that is going to be going into the one with the slot. So just put that up and slide it over, and then put this ring back on. So upon editing this video, I actually realized that we installed this suction cup the wrong way, so I'm gonna go ahead and show you how to do it the correct way. So here is the suction cup with the slotted section on the window panel. Now, Sherpa says that this should only come with one rubber spacer, but it actually came with two. So I don't know if they sent us one too many, but we have two for both sides of the vehicle. So I'm just gonna go ahead and use both of them. But I showed you that the one spacer goes underneath and the other one goes on top to hold that in place. Well, that's not right. You're gonna put both spacers on and then put it in like so. You should have no rubber spacers on the outside of the window panel. If you have one spacer, just use the one. If you have two, then use the two. But that is the correct way to install this. So let's go back to the regular install. So next we can mount the other suction cup to the window panel with this bracket. So it's gonna go suction cup, and the other rubber ring is gonna go around. So the metal is going to go in between those two pieces of rubber, and that's going to go right like that. And for that, we're going to be using the hex bolts and a washer, and then on the underside a washer and a nylock nut. So we're going to go ahead and tighten down those bolts and nuts. Just try to get the suction cup centered in that hole so it looks good. And then you're going to need an 11 wrench and an 11 socket and ratchet, and we can go ahead and get those tight. So before you go and put the window panel onto the roof rack, if you have any accessories that you want to mount to this, you want to make sure you do that now before you put it on the roof rack. So now at the 4Runner, we're going to go ahead and take out the bolts for the rear bracket and the bolts for the crossbar here, and I'm just going to put a rag or something there, so when I take those bolts out and if it does drop, it's not going to hit the paint. So these bolts we will be reusing. The ones on the rear bracket, we're going to be replacing those. So these on the rear bracket are an 11 and a 4mm Allen wrench. All right, so now that we have the crossbar taken, the bolts for the crossbar taken out and the bolts for the rear bracket taken off, we're ready to put the window panel on. The two longer bolts that come with the kit, those are going to be replacing the two that go in the rear bracket. And then we're going to be reusing the bolts to go into the crossbar. And then the other set of bolts and nylock nuts, those are going to be going somewhere in and right about here. So we're going to have three sets of bolts holding this on the top, and then you have your two suction cups that go on the lower portion of the window. So when you're putting this on, or before you put this on, make sure your rear window is nice and clean so the suction cups stick good. And what we're going to do is line up this square here on the window panel with the square on the roof rack. So once you have those lined up, go ahead and press the suction cups onto your window. That way it can stay, and now you can go ahead and get your bolts started. So I'm going to start with the bolts that go in the front. So those can pretty much go anywhere in the slot. And I can just slip these through and get it to help hold the window panel up. And then I can go ahead and reinstall my bolts for my crossbar and my rear bracket. All right, so we're gonna be using the longer bolts that come with the kit. Those are gonna be going back into the rear bracket here, which might be a little bit difficult to get lined back up because when you take those bolts out, the rack is gonna drop a bit. So you might have to put some pressure on there to get them slipped through. Once you have some bolts holding this to the roof rack, you can go ahead and just pull off the suction cups from the window. That way you can move this around a little bit if you need to. We can go ahead and put the bolts back in for the crossbar. And just make sure everything's lined up nicely and we can tighten everything down. So these bolts that we put into the front here, I'm just gonna slide that one all the way to the front. And this one I'll probably just put like an inch gap or so between the two. That way we have equal distance between all the bolts here. So with everything tight, we have that square lined up. That should get you everything looking nicely with the edge of the window. And now we can go ahead and just push down on the suction cups and make sure everything is good. All right, so now that you have the window panels installed on your Sherpa roof rack, there's a bunch of different accessories that you can get for these, whether it be Rotopax mounts, traction board mounts, quick fist mounts. There's a bunch of different options out there. But if you're interested in some window panels for your Sherpa roof rack, they're available on yodaexpedition.com. I'll put the link down in the description. Hopefully this video helps. I'll see you guys in the next one, and thanks for watching.